Good morning.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. Can you please first introduce yourself and tell me where you're from?
Sure. Well, I'm Richard Foord. I'm from here. We're in fact you're on my patch today. We've come to Uffcombe. Very good of you, Amy, to come to Uffcombe. And today we're at the Old Well Garden Centre. I live here with my three children, my wife, and we've lived in mid Devon for the last 12 years. 11 of those years have been in Uffcombe.
Brilliant. And so, what was your job before politics?
Okay, well, I suppose I would split my career into two parts. I spent more than 10 years in the army as an army officer. I was, and then since then I've been working at universities, mainly the University of Exeter and also the University of Oxford. But and that's something that working from home has enabled. But I would say, really, of my army career, that of those 10 years I spent time as an education officer and also on operations in Kosovo and Iraq. And as somebody working with the United Nations in Kosovo, I was working on a peacekeeping operation with the UN, and then spent time in Iraq educating our own British military officers about culture and history.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. And can you tell me three surprising or interesting facts about yourself, please?
Okay, all right, I'll have a go. I am the grandson of a miner. My father's dad was a miner in Somerset. He mined lime, which was spread on the fields. And what else? When I was in the army, I served with the Desert Rats, and that was for a time in Kosovo during the insurgency in 2007, 2008. And then, third fact, I play the drums. I've been in a couple of bands. I learned to play the drums at school, and I've played in bands both in school at sixth form and then later in the army.
By desert rats, do you mean the mine-sniffing rats?
The Desert Rats was a name given in the Second World War to the 7th Armoured Division, but these days we have a smaller army, so these days the 7th Armoured Brigade is what I was talking about sort of back in 2007.
That's good. I'm excited because there are some rats that sniff out mines abroad, and they're very, very cool little creatures. You should definitely look them up when you get home.
Right.
So what are your ties to the constituency besides living here?
Well, I mean, depends how far you want to go back, really. I would say if my surname, which is a rather unusual surname with two O's, if you look in church records, there are Fords with double O buried in the constituency. Honestly, we don't have a very clear family tree with genealogy linked back hundreds of years, but if you go to the cemetery at Chardstock, you'll find 004 buried there. So I do feel the sense that my ancestors have lived here for many, many years. These days I have schools, school children, school-age children at Kenspear, at Uffcombe, and I volunteer with scout groups in Wyllie and Honiton. But of course, living bang smack in the middle of the constituency, it means that we are all over the place. We're often visiting the beach here or Branscombe and going to Seaton for a day out, or shopping in Tiverton, swimming in Honiton and so on.
Yeah, brilliant. So, in your eyes, what does the role of an MP entail?
Well, I think the role of a good MP, and we should make the distinction,
Yeah.
the role of a good MP is somebody who advocates on behalf of others. And I think this is something that I've really seen very plainly in the last 4 weeks, that there are a number of groups and individuals who just require somebody who's working in an official capacity to perhaps do casework on their behalf, to know that their plight, their difficulty, their problem, to write letters and to to spot things that can be fixed with legislation, or things that actually don't require legislation at all, but just require advocacy. And I mean, just to give you one example, I went last week to meet with a guy called John, who runs Honiton Youth Football Club.
Yeah.
They've got 280 young people on the roll, and yet they have been unable to get permanent facilities. They're on a 1-year lease for what was a farmer's field that they're playing football at the moment. And while they have appealed for support from the town council, from the district council, and from their former MP, that support has not been forthcoming. What they really need is somebody to sit down with the authority of an official role like MP to actually get in behind them and advocate for them, to make a noise for them. And I really think that could potentially unlock their future in a way that's just, frankly, hasn't happened to date.
Yeah, brilliant. And why would you make a good MP?
Well, I think I would point, Amy, to the parallels between public service and military service. I mean, in terms of military service, it's about advocating on behalf of others. So, for example, as an army officer, as a platoon commander, or somebody who's charged with command or responsibility for soldiers, you have to look out for their welfare. You have to advocate for them when talking to others in authority, and that sort of business of really knowing individuals, knowing their challenges, and helping them with those problems they might come across is something that I think that's very true of being an army officer in military service, but I also think it's very true in public life and public service as an MP. And certainly I've talked to enough people on the doorstep in the last few weeks to know that there are plenty of people who are crying out for that voice to represent them.
Brilliant. What are your campaigning priorities?
Well, I would point to three things. I think firstly, what I'm noticing is that people are really beginning to hurt from expiring cost of living. And the Liberal Democrats believe that we should have a VAT cut at this time, cutting the VAT would put £600 back in people's pockets. I just think this is the wrong time for the government to be raising taxes just as prices go through the roof. And the national insurance rise happened back in April. It's just it's the wrong tax rise at the wrong time, and it's really starting to stick. It really actually causing a lot of suffering for pensioners and for families. That's one. Another priority of ours is to bang the drum for farmers. This is mid Devon here is really a place for which farming is vitally important, not only to farming families but to the wider economy. There is a sort of much broader industry around farming. And at this time where the price of fertiliser is going up very steeply, the price of red diesel is going through the roof, the price of food is rocketing up. At that very same time, we've seen the government starting to wind down basic payment for farmers. And I know for a fact from talking to farmers that some of them are finding that they might potentially struggle to hand over the family farm. In some cases, one case I'm thinking of in particular, a farmer's been in a particular family for 17 generations. It's probably not going to be handed on to the next generation because of the challenges and the difficulty of simply just getting by as a farming family. The third thing is ambulance waiting times. We have the longest ambulance waiting times in the country, and this is something that is absolutely no fault of individuals. In fact, we've got a fantastic the public servants who I know who work in the National Health Service are brilliant individuals. The system is now very challenged by years of neglect and inattention by the Conservative government. And so I would like to see a community ambulance fund to address our particularly long ambulance waiting times.
Yeah. And what's your message to people who are on the fence about which way to vote?
Well, I mean, I think the two sides of the fence are Conservative and Liberal Democrat at this time. I mean, I say that because I know Conservatives have been representing this constituency for many years now, and we've seen very little change under that arrangement. Of course, the difference this time is that we are going to be voting in a by-election. It's not like a general election where we choose the government.
Yeah.
This is a by-election, so it's merely an opportunity to choose our next MP. And as such, that gives us an opportunity to send a message to the government that we are fed up of being taken for granted. And I really want to stress this point about being taken for granted. I think the fact that our area has returned Conservative MP reliably for so many decades means that the government doesn't really feel the need to invest in this area. I mean, you were describing earlier on, Amy, while we were chatting, that in January the Chancellor of the Exchequer bypassed Tiverton on his way to North Devon. North Devon, a marginal constituency, and he was trumpeting 200 new well-paid skilled jobs in a neighbouring constituency that had been created. One reason I suggest why the government might be looking to create jobs in marginal constituencies is because they cannot rely on the votes of voters in those areas. I mean, maybe I could use another example. Levelling up funding, right? In December of last year, Mid Devon submitted a levelling up funding bid for a relief road at Plumpton, and that was unsuccessful. Well, I mean, the levelling up fund is tending to support bids from the north of England, from the Midlands, from marginal constituencies, the so-called red wall, where the government feels very insecure about whether it will get its MPs returned. And frankly, a place like this needs to speak up and remind the government that we're here, or else we'll get ignored and we'll continue to be ignored.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. So now I just have a couple of quick fire questions for you. So where is your favourite place to go for a walk in constituency?
I do like going to the National Trust property at Knightshayes, and as well as taking the family for walks there. I also go and help out with the scouts there. We do wide games there in the dark in the winter in the grounds of Knightshayes. So that's a bit of a favourite. Also, the X Valley is also very beautiful.
Yeah. What about your favourite place to go for a green tea?
Well, I can combine the two, right? Because following, say, a walk in the X Valley, it would be on my way home, perhaps a trip into the Hartnell Hotel. I've got to say, this green tea we've just enjoyed was super good.
Very good.
But the Hartnell Hotel claims to offer the best green tea in Devon, and who am I to deny?
I've not had one from them yet. I must try it. Yeah. If a VIP came to constituency, where's the first place you'd take them?
Okay. Well, I suppose I would probably want to take them to Tiverton High School. And Tiverton High School, because it's something that has received so many promises for so long, and those promises have not been forthcoming. They've not been met with resources. And I mean, I don't know whether you consider Michael Gove to be a very important person, and that's sort of we don't need to get into that. But I do understand that in 2010, when Gove was Education Secretary, he promised to come to the constituency, to come to meet with people at Tiverton High School, to see the problems there in pursuit of investing in a new school. And here we are, 12 years later, and we have not seen anything like the money that's required for the reconstruction of Tiverton High School. We're left with 1950s buildings, crumbling infrastructure, a burgeoning school that is no longer fit.
Brilliant. And what's your favourite fact about the constituency?
I think an interesting fact about the constituency is that the country's first Liberal Party Prime Minister was the MP for Tiverton. Lord Palmerston was MP for Tiverton. He started out as a Conservative, but he went on a journey that I think a lot of Conservatives are going on right now, where he switched his allegiance to the Liberal Party and was a very competent and capable Foreign Secretary and PM.
Brilliant. And finally, if I were to give you £1,000 now, I don't have £1,000 to give you, but if I did, which charity would you donate it to or split it between?
Splitting it between would be the way to go, I think. And I mean, I would probably choose a combination of the Royal British Legion, Sustrans, it's a sustainable transport charity, deals with cycle cars, and then the third one, our local charity, the Churches Housing Action Team, that support shelter and they should work on issues of homelessness in this constituency in the Tiverton area. And I should add that I have previously raised money for all three of them, and in the case of Churches Housing Action Team, my children and I did a big sleep house and raised money for
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for giving up your Sunday morning to sit with me. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.